Okay, we're up to Kuf Beis on the base. Kuf Beis on the base. A guten winter, as they say to everyone on this Hoshana Rabbah in the year Tafshin Pei Gimel. Says we're up to the two dots, 4 or 5 lines to the bottom. It says La Yoma Harishain. The first, there's two. You can't say to the girl, listen, when you come to my house, I'll feed you. But Amrav Chisda Zoysemeres Bas Eitzel Ima, that a girl's place is with her mother. In other words, the mother's away from. He says, when your mother comes to me, I'll feed you. You see that the girl's place is with the mother. Where do you see that? How do you know it's the place of a Gedoyla? And of course, the Katana's place is with her mother. The Tanya, someone died and he left a young cotton to his mother. These are stepbrothers say, may God let him grow up by us. Let us stepbrother, let him grow up by us. Okay. God let him grow by me. Leave him by the mother, do not leave him by the stepbrothers, because they didn't even let they killed him before they mama shechted him, it says that. So you see that it says this, I don't know what it means over here. It says Erev Rishon, or it's Erev Rosh Hashanah, or Erev Pesach. There's a few different gears over here exactly when the bottom line is you see that when it came to money, they wanted to get rid of the Irish. In Cain, listening, so the Gemara says, how do you know it's speaking about what? A gadol, that the place of a gadola is next to the mother. How do you know? Maybe it's what? It's a katana. That's the Gemara, right? In Cain, if it's speaking about a katana, listening l'makom shehi, my l'makom she'imai. Why stress l'makom she'imai? Right? Shmamina bas etzel le'em. The place of a girl is by a mother. Loishna gadola, loishna katana. It's very famous. Very famous. It'll be famous now that I tell it to you. There's a line. It says a son is a son till he takes a wife. A daughter is a daughter for the rest of your life. I kind of have a few sons. None of them live near me. None of them they're all over the world dispersed. And I have 2 daughters, and they both live near me. Okay. Not near me. One second. Not near me.
Can you repeat that one more time?
What? You want to hear it again? Okay, Penny, I'll repeat it. A son is a son till he takes a wife. A daughter is a daughter for the rest of your life. Right? Penny, your daughter's there, you? There you go.
Not anymore, but okay.
And he says, remember, there were 2 husbands. They said they shouldn't say what. We'll both support her. In other words, what was the case? That they wrote at the time of the Tanoim, they wrote they're going to support the stepdaughter for 5 years. It happened twice. So now they shouldn't come and make a deal between them. Listen, why do we both have to give her support? We'll give a short fist. We'll give her 5 years. The Mishnah said, what do you have to do? One gives mezainas, the other one gives the may mezainas. Right? That was the din. One gives mezainas and one gives the may mezainas. Hahud Gavra the Oigele Reichel Lechavre. There was this person who rented a mill to his friend, and the price of the meal was the tchina, was the purpose of providing ground grain for the owner of the mill. So that's, in other words, he rented the mill to him. He didn't have to pay him money for the rental, but he had to pay him the ground grain. L'soif iyaser, the owner of the mill got wealthy, and Zavin Reicha Bechamra, and he bought a mill and a donkey to work the mill. So he didn't need the flour provided by the old miller. Sorry, Penny. Amalei Adho Idna. So the person who owned the mill got wealthy. Said, until now, Havi Tchinana Gabach. My tchina, my ground grain was by you. Meaning, but Hashta Havli agree. You know what? I want money. In other words, I don't need your grain. I purchased my own grain independently, and I have a worker, a donkey to work the mill. So I want you to pay me rental for the mill. So Amalei mitchan tchinachlach. The guy says, I'm still going to pay you grain. So Sabra Avina. Now, so what's the shaila? Can he do that or not? So Sabra Avina Lameimar Hainu Masnis, and that's a Mishnah. La yomu shneim hari anu zonan ma'asoi ke'echad, el echad zanav echad le'slei d'mei mezainis. So this is the same case, just like over there where you didn't need the mizonis anymore, the person had to give cash. So too over here, where the person did not need the flour anymore because he was wealthy, that the renter of the mill would have to go ahead and pay him cash. That's what Mart said. So Amalei Rav Avira said Avira to Ravina, me dumbi, it's not comparable. Hassam by the girl, Chad Kresa Islay, Trey Kresasa Leslie. She only has one stomach. You can't possibly go ahead and fill it up twice. In other words, it's one stomach. So that's it. So it's one stomach. So therefore, what do? You one feeds and one gives the cash. But Hacham Matzi Amalei, he's able to say, the one who rented the mill is able to say to him, the owner, Tachin v'zavin, Tachin v'isiv. I'll ground for you. You don't need it anymore. So sell it. And whatever you have, you can keep. In other words, I don't have to provide cash for you. The original deal of providing the flour, it's not a chesaron. There's no loss over here. Here's the flour, use it. You need money, so sell it. But whatever. But it's not upon me to provide cash for you. V'lo Maron that he can tine this, that the person who rented the mill can say to the owner, El the Leslie Tchina L'Rechaya. He doesn't have work. In other words, he only can. It's not constantly providing flour. It's there's times where yes, times not. But if he constantly is going in and working, we go ahead and say Zenen was like Chasa, and he can go ahead and he can, in other words, he can go ahead and a person will go ahead and like this. Let's say I rented the mill and I only have 20 hours of work of the mill. So 20 hours work in the mill, I don't have cash to give the owner of the mill. I'll give him let's say I have constant uses of the mill. It's going all the time. It's going all the time. So I can go ahead and charge. I could tell the person I'm grinding for you, give me cash. And then for he has cash now, he can give the owner cash. So that we say he doesn't have to provide the owner cash is only if he can, you don't have a flow of cash because it's limited amount of time you're working and you only have X amount, and therefore I'll pay you with flour. Mashen Kane, if the mill is working 24/7 and he certainly is doing okay, then there's no sweat off the person who rented the mill to provide the owner with cash because he can get cash for what? For other people's using the mill. Okay, the Mishnah says, now we know that we were speaking about the mezainis of the girls, but the Amman is supported from the estate also. Call you may Yosef Armalati, the whole time you're living in my house, you're going to be supported, right? So we discussed this throughout the Masechta. Almana Sha'amra Efshi La Almana that says Efshi losses me base Bailey. I don't want to leave. I want to sit in, I want my husband's dead, right? And I want to sit in this house. They can't tell her to go home to daddy. They can't take because that's part of the Tanai, the Ksuba, that she could live in the husband's house. So they can't say to him, go to your daddy's house. We'll go ahead and provide for you there. They have to not only live with them, but they have to provide an abode, as the Gemara will describe. If she says, if she lozos me base Abba, I want to stay home by daddy, and I want you to provide food for me. They could say to her, if you're by us, now, the Havamina of the Gemara right now is she doesn't have mezainis at all. We're going to see that that's not pshat. We're going to see that it means we're going to see she does get mezainis, but not as much as she would get if she was in the house. Okay, she will get mezainis, but not as much as she would get if she was living with the assignment. Right? If she goes ahead and she tines, I guess she's very young. She says the following. She says. I'm young and they're young. And it's not I guess appropriate for them to live together in this state. Then they have to go ahead and give a full-fledged mezainis in a father's house. I guess if it's not age appropriate, for I'll see yichud and different things, then what? Then you'd have to provide in the other house. Okay, a lot of agadata, guys. A lot of agadata. Baruch Hashem. Tarabana. Mishtameshes b'mother. She's mishtamesh with an abode. Kiderach shemishtameshes b'chayi baila. Just like in the lifetime of a husband. In other words, they can't go ahead and treat her less than her husband treated her. Ba'avodim, u'shvachos, if she had slaves or female slaves. Kiderach shemishtameshes b'chayi baila. B'korim or b'kistos, like with pillows and mattresses. Kiderach shemishtameshes b'chayi baila. Kesev klizav kiderach shemishtameshes b'chayi baila. Then Kesev of silver kalim and gold kalim, just like she was used to when she was living with her husband. Shekach kosev law, because this is what the lashon of the Tanai Kesuvos says. V'atehei yosvi v'beisi, you will live in my house. Umitzona min chasai, and you'll be supported from my estate. Kol yemei megar al morasayich v'beisi, the whole duration of your widowedness in my house. And okay, now I guess put the comma after the word al Messiah. Bebesi, Tan Rabbi Yosef, bebesi v'loi bebikasi, in my house and not in my hut. In other words, if the guy would have a hut that he would hunt from, she doesn't live in the hut. Amr Rav Nachman, Yisayim shemachru mother almana, Yisayim that sell the abode of the almana lo yasel l'klam. It's not a good sale. It's not fast to sell. It was even though they inherit the estate. In this case, they would not inherit this. They would the chiyuv to support the widow would not preclude them selling it, despite the fact that they inherit. There is a good sale. Fellas, the halakha is like this. Let's say the man leaves a very meager property. He doesn't leave a lot. So we say that, and you only have enough. We had this earlier in the Sefta. You only have enough for the widow to be supported and not the sons. So the halacha would be that the sons have to go out to work. They go door to door. And the widow will be supported from the estate because it's not a covenant for the woman, right? But it's a design for the woman to go out. So the Gemara is asking a kash like this: you're telling me that when, even despite the fact that all yarshim, they're all yarshim, so by the house they can't sell, but where the nechasim muatin, which will go to the almana, they could sell. So the house which goes to the almana, they can't sell. The nechasim muatim, which would eventually go to the almana, right? You can't sell. What's the difference? That's the kasha. So after the Gemara, here's the Gemara is like Hasam by the small property lo mishtabid lem mechayim. Hacha mishtabid lo mechayim. It seems that the house was meshubed to the woman. It never went to the kids. It went to the woman. It was meshubed from the ksuba to the woman. Masha'en kain, property first goes to the kids. Once it gets to the kids, then we ascertain how much is there. If there's a lot, then everyone's happy. If there's a little, then the kids have to go door to door and it goes to the woman, but it's the kids. So therefore, since it goes to the kids first, they're able to sell it. Masha'enkin, the house which was mechayim, meshubah to the woman, it never went through the kids, and therefore it was never in their hands to sell. So it's a difference. Eventually it goes to the kids, but a different way. So if it goes to the kids first, they could sell it. If it doesn't go to the kids first, they can't. The house doesn't go to the kids first. It's meshubah to the almana. Masha'enkin, the chasim muatim, which are yarshim, they inherited, they could sell, despite the fact that they have no right. It's eventually going to go to the woman if they didn't sell it. That's the difference between the two. Amrabaya, Naktinon. That means take this Masorah with you. Mother almana shenafal. Let's say the house falls in. Eina yarshim chayav lebnois. They don't have to build it up. Again, what's the lashon, guys? It says kol yumei migorm al masayach bebesi va'at teyasve bebesi. You're going to live in my house. Bebesi. Va'at teyasve bebesi. My house. Once it falls in, no longer is it his house. That's the start. Tanya Nami Hachi, mother almana, the abode of an almana shenafo, eina yoshim chayavim lebnoisoi, they're not chayav to build it. Loyoid el afilu hi meres, even if she says, hanichayni leave me, v'abnenu mishali, and I'll build it using my own funds. Ain't shaymala. You don't have to listen. Boya, what's the halacha? If shifts, Rashi says, if they repaired it before it fell, in other words, it was going to fall, but they repaired it beforehand. Do they have to? Is it considered a fallen house or not? The Gemara says teku. That remains a shaila. Okay. She said Amra efshi. She says efshi to live in my in your house. I want to live by my father, right? And we said they don't have to give him anything, right? That's mashma lush in the Mishnah. You don't have to give anything. Right? Why do they not give to her the same way they mechuyev to give to her when she was by them? In other words, once there's a chiyuv of the Tanai Ksuba that as long as she's not remarried, you have to provide. What difference should it be where she's living? Correct? And the Mishnah seems to say there's a huge difference. Like the exact literal lashon of the Mishnah, she loses everything if she goes home to daddy. Well, we're going to see that's not true, but that's what it's mashma. It says, Messiah Leila Rav Huna. This is a right Rav Huna. Dam Rav Huna, Birchas Habayis Beruba. The bracha of the house is with many. Let's see Rashi, guys. Birchas Habayis Beruba, go up a little bit. People help each other in the house. There's many in the house. And as a result of helping each other, Mishtakrim, they become more plentiful. Umazel de Rabim Adif. Says Rashi, fascinating, guys. The mazel of a Rabim is Adif. Even in a house, the mazel of a Rabim is Adif. So Memela, when she leaves the house, she's causing less mizoinus to be in the house. So for the Gemara, you want to know why she doesn't get anything, is because her leaving is causing a loss to the house. Because now you don't have a birchas abayis. Fred Gemara v'leisalu lefi birchas abayis. So why does she lose everything? Why didn't you just say, well, let's say there's a percentage, right? Whatever percentage would be lost by her leaving, so that's what she should lose. Says the Gemara, Achanami, that's what we mean. So as I told you in the Mishnah, don't learn pshat in the Mishnah, she lost everything. She lost kafi the percentage that she would have added had she remained in the house. That's pshat. Hachanami in Hachanami. Amra Funa lashon chachamim baracha, lashon chachamim oisher, lashon chachamim marpeh. The lashon of chachamim is we find in different scenarios how it affects bracha, wealth, and what and health. Bracha hadam maron. The bracha, like we just said. Now, as the Gemara said, Agav, in passing, it said, they just said simply she loses the mezainis, right? So Agav, we hear that when she leaves the house, the bracha from the house is gone. You notice that's an example of Lashon Chachamim, that what? The Chachamim tell us that she doesn't get anything. It never said anything about a bracha in the house, but as a result, we can go ahead and infer Agav that there's such a din. So that's Lashon Chachamim bracha. What is Lashon Chachamim is Aisher? Where's an example of that? A person sells payers to his friend. Mashach, if he does Mashicha, which is the kinyan, the acquirement, v'loy modad, he doesn't measure it. Kana modad v'loy mashach, if he measures it and he doesn't do Mashicha, loy kana, he never made a kinyan. Here's the Lashon of the Chachamim, guys. And if he's a pikeach, let him go ahead and rent out the place. In other words, we know there's different ways to acquire metaltalin. One of the ways to acquire metaltalin that doesn't move, like such as Paris, is a kinyan chatzar. In other words, if it's in my jurisdiction, so you want to know, you do Mashicha without Mindida, you want to know what's there, so you want to do it on everything. So what do? You go ahead, you rent the whole spot, and therefore you get wealthy because you'll get the whole thing. So Lashon Chachamim, if you're a Pikeach, rented a kinyan chatzar, and you'll get the whole thing. Lashon Chachamim marpe, you get cured at nan. Lo yilos adam chitim, a person should not chew wheat, v'yaniach al gabi makasei b'Pesach, and put it on his wound on Pesach, mifnei shemach mitzvahs, because it becomes chametz. So, guys, you're telling me a din in chametz, but agav the din in chametz, you're hearing a refuah that chewed up wheat is good for a makkah. So that's an example of lashon chachamim. In other words, they did not say that, but we can infer from the psak something from it. So we can infer from the psak that you can't go ahead. If you leave the house, you're not going to get the same amount. We can infer that living in the house brings bracha to the house. We can infer that if you go ahead and make a kinyan chatzar, you'll get more. You can infer that if you go ahead and chew wheat, it'll cure you. Even though you were telling me the context, it's totally different. Beautiful Gemara. Now, with the next block Gemara is going to deal with the death of Rabbi. Rabbeinu HaKadosh. The Rabbeinu HaKadosh was again. First of all, he's called Kadosh. Not too many people get that moniker of Kedusha. He was the he saw Eis Lasos Hev Torah Secha. He wrote down the Torah Shebal Peh. He wrote down the Torah Shebal Peh. He was very, very wealthy. He was friends with Antoninus, Marcus Aurelius. He was who was the head of the world. He was the head of the Roman Empire. He was the Caesar at the time. They were great, great friends, and therefore it was a very good time for the Jews because of this relationship. And Rebbe was fantastically wealthy, and he used all his wealth. What he did was, we look as we go through Shas, we're bombarded with Toseftis and Brises and different things, and they're not. We don't depend upon our Bryce or Tosefta. We depend upon a Mishnah, because the Torah Shebal Peh, since anything is Bal Peh, it goes ahead and it's subject to the memory of people, and people memorize different things, and which was correct and which was not correct was Rebbe had to decide. So Brisa was something berah, from lashon of outside. It was kept outside. It was never listed in the Mishnah. Rebbe put down on paper. He put down the Mishnayos that we have, and the mail of the Gemara that went on the Mishnayos is the source for the Talmud Bavli. It's the source for the Talmud Bavli. The Mishnayos, in fact, is the source of the Talmud Mishalmi as well. That was written by Rabbi Yochanan. But so anything we have is because of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And the Gemara describes here his Petira and some of his Savo at the time of his Petira. And it's the people spend a lot of time in this Gemara. There's loads and loads and stuff on it, but this is Daf Yomi, and we'll do what we do. Do a little bit. I found have a big sav. I'll weird, something super weird. Anyway, says the Gemara. He said, I need my sons. So Nichtasu Bana Vetzlai, Rebbe's sons came to him. Amalahem, his hero be covered imchem. This is why we bring this in, because the cover of Lamana. Be careful the cover of imchem, your mother. Neri, that's one. Neri dolak bimkomo, and you should keep the fire burning in its place, the ner in its place. And shulchan yeh orach bimkomo, and the shulchan should be in its place. Mitet hey maitzas bimkomo, and the bed should be in its place. Yosef Chafni and Shimon Efrasi, Yosef Chafni and Shimon Efrasi, Haim Shimshuni, they were mishamish me in my life. B'chayai, the Haim Shimshuni b'moisi, they should be mishamish me in my death. This is the Tzava of Rebbe. This is the Tzava of Rebbe, and now the Gemara will go through each one. Okay, Hisiru b'kovet imchem. Be careful the covet of your mother. Fred the Gemara, why did you need Rebbe to go ahead and warn them? The Oraisa it's the Oraisa the Chsiv. So in other words, when Rebbe didn't have to go tell him and say don't kill. Rebbe didn't have to go tell him don't do znus. Anything that's in the Torah, you don't need Rebbe to tell him. When Rebbe went ahead and said "Zira b'kovet imchem," your mother, so Lakari, what's he telling him? Keep it up. Aim. It's a Torah state. I saw. What's Rebbe telling him that? And for the Gemara, it's speaking Eishes Av. It's speaking that one about a stepmother. Says the Gemara, Havi. It was a stepmother. Says where Eishes Av Nami Deraisa. Eishes Av is also Deraisa. He, the Tanya, Kavi Esavicha V'Esimecha. Esavicha, when it says Esavicha, through Eishes Avicha. So you see that what? That it's Midaraisa. V'Esimecha, what's the Vav? Zu Bali Mecha, right? The Baal of your mother, your stepfather. Vav Yisera. Why is the Vav Yisera? The Rabbi says, Achicha Gadol, your older brother. If you have an older brother, for some reason, he can be a total Amma Oretz, but they remember this Gemara. That Midaraisa, there's a Vav, there's a Shaila where it goes on any older brother. In other words, it means the oldest brother, or does it mean any brother? I, of course, remind my siblings about any brother. I call like the other way because I'm only number 2 in line. But so the bottom line is kasha. It's great stepmothers also midaraisa, and for Gemara hanimili mechayim. That's only when the is alive. Aval acha misalo. I guess it's only after the father is alive. When the father is alive, when Rebbe would be alive, there'd be a mitzvah deraisa for the stepmother. But when Rebbe would not be around, there wouldn't be deraisa. So therefore, Rebbe was warning them, go ahead. Rebbe was warning them to go ahead and be careful in the covet of your stepmother, because when I'm no longer in this world, right? When I'm no longer in the world, it doesn't apply. But it's not a funny lashon. He said, "Ziru b'kovet imchem," your mother. You know, said your mother. It's not really their mother. It's the stepmother, right? So if I did just a little nuance of lashon. Anyway, maybe they raised him. I don't know. Could be. So you see, Rabbi lost his wife. This is a stepmother. You see, Rabbi lost his wife. Now, Rabbi said that the ner should be lit. Ner hayadolik b'mkomo, shulchan hayarach b'mkomo, mitat tachas meitzod b'mkomo, my timer. Kol be'shimsha every erev Shabbos. Havi osi lebeisi. Rabbi after his death would come home. Hahu be'shimsha osi shivata. This one particular Friday night came along a neighbor and kakari abava. She was banging on the door. Omer Amsei said the servant Shesiku, be quiet. The Rebbe Yosef, because Rebbe's sitting there. Keeping the Shama, since Rebbe heard that it became public that he would come back after his death. Shuvla Yosef would not come back anymore. Shalahoitzi Lazal Tzadikim Harishonim, that he should not go ahead and bring about that other tzaddikim could not do this, and people would disparage them in some way. So Rebbe stopped doing this. So it's a very famous Gemara that Rebbe would come back. So why is Rebbe coming back Friday night? Why is he coming back Friday night? It's got a very strange Gemara. So guys, check this out. Okay, this is from the Sefer Hasidim. Most of it we're not going to go through because I have no idea what it's talking about, but we'll get to the end. Bottom line is, Hanefesh hi b'misa k'mo b'chayim. The nefesh is in its death like it was in life. V'zeu sham zal hare b'misa b'gehenim k'mo b'chayim. Ki, let's say not hareach, but a ruach. Ki a ruach daka b'yoyse, ruach haguf ava. Umelubeshes b'ruach haguf, v'haguf nilbish b'ruach malbushov, and the guf wears its malbushim. And even though a person is burnt, he decomposes. Haruach loy pasik. The ruach doesn't stop. Now it seems that he brings in that the reason why we wear tachrichim is they decompose, and then once it comes back to this world, it won't come back orim, and therefore let's pick it up over here. Rabbeinu HaKadosh hayaniru b'bigdei chamurois or chamudois shahaya loivish b'Shabbos. Rebbe would come back Friday night in his Shabbos clothing, and not in his shrouds that he was buried in. L'haidia, to show shedayin hayi b'toikfai, that he still was in his strength. Upoiter es harabim yidei chavasan b'kiddush hayon. Says the Sefer Hasidim, Rebbe would make kiddush. V'loi kishara mesim shehim chafesh ne'en mitzvahs, and not like other mesim that are what? Are free from mitzvahs. Kiyim kechai b'begodim k'shayalovish b'chayav. Alive with the begodim that he wore in his lifetime. V'nikrat tzadikim chayim. Afil misasan upoita b'kiddush b'rei abayis. So it seems to be that that's pshat. We say gadol that tzadikim nikra chayim, fellas, because if not for tzadikim nikra chayim, how could a person is potter from a mitzvah? How could he go ahead and be moitzi l'shem mitzvah? So it's geschmack, this nakuda over here. Rebbe came back Friday night, Dafka Friday night, to make kiddush. And how can you make kiddush? Kimin shemeis potem and mitzvahs. You see, that's pshat and tzaddik and nikru chayim. Since they're what the nikru chayim, they can go and be mitzvahs. Fabulous sefer chasidim. Fabulous sefer chasidim. So I happen to have the original, and I was able to share it with you. Again, very cryptic and certainly above my pay grade. But at least this nakuda, he adds that little nakuda about what about making kiddush, and the nakuda of what tzaddikim in that interesting, maybe some blog material, right? Interesting that tzaddikim are called in their death, they're called alive, to this extent. A mace is part for the mitzvah. How can it be mitzvah in the mitzvah? And the answer is that tzaddikim nikra chayim. It's a fabulous, nuance of that pshat. Tzaddikim nikra chayim. It's pretty fabulous. Pretty amazing. Okay.
Not for the daf, but the good question is, why didn't the other gedolim who were at least as great as Rebbe, why didn't they come back like Rebbe did?
Okay, so I'm not sure they could. I shared this with Yohannes' son. So of course, my son Yohannes' son always has something to add. He's one of these guys. So he quoted the Marami Pano, the Sefer Al Gilgulim, that Rebbe was a Gilgul of Yaakov Avinu. and it says by Yaakov Vayigva, but it doesn't say Vayomis. So Yaakov loy meis. So Ken Zayin, since Rebbe was the Gilgal of him, and Pshat in the Gemara will be therefore that the Rebbe did it had nothing to do with his greatness. It had to do with Yaakov's greatness, and therefore they lead into it. That'd be a very nice hezbollah to your kasha, your Abi. So it's a very, very, very nice nakuda, a very interesting Gemara. Okay, very. Now something else he said is Yosef Chafni Chafeni and Shimon Efrasi. Yosef from Haifa and Shimon Efrasi. Heim Shimshuni b'chayai. Heim Shimshuni b'moisi. They should go ahead and mishamish me in my life and mishamish me in my death. I went through this. The article quoted the Sefer Haflah. I looked it up. It's really. I'll paraphrase. It seems it's asa for a person who learns Torah to mishamish another person. So how in the world could he have these people mishamish him? And in fact, it's Gemara. I didn't post it. I don't want to. It seems to be he brings in two Gemaras. The bottom line is, how could you ever have anyone be mishamish you? And basically he comes up with the only one who can be mishamish you is people who know Torah, but they're not medagdik in the lashon of Torah. And he brings the Gemara that people from Haifa and people from the Ephraim, or those are the people in Shleifim, they couldn't pronounce the shin, so they couldn't. They were not able to go ahead and be medayik in Torah. So Dafka, these two people, he said to Mishamish, he wasn't speaking necessarily about this greatness of these people. He was saying that these two people are unique because halachically, if a person learns Torah and is medayik in Torah, then able to mishamish me. So the Aflah says he dafka picked these two people because these two people, because of the lack of being medayik, halachically they're able to mishamish. Every word of Gemara is amazing, like every single nuance. If you look into it, it's amazing. This Gemara has tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff. Anyway, Savamine behadei almo hu dekamar. They thought to say, when it says that they should be mishamish, right? When they thought that it was going to be mishamish, why did it mean that he should be mishamish? It meant in this world. They were saying these people should serve him in this world. However, Kivin, the Chazi, the Kodem Rasayil say, these people, their coffin went before Rebbe's coffin. In other words, they died before him. They died before him. So Shmamina lahu almahu dekama. Rebbe wasn't speaking about this world. He was speaking that they mishamish him in the next world. The Amar Hachin, that he said in this way, this cryptic way, milsa havelahu. People shouldn't think that by saying that they're mishamish Rebbe in the next world, people shouldn't think that these two people died before, that there was some avera, that they did some avera, and the leimru milsa havelahu, there was something by them. And also until this time, the reason why they stayed alive is only because of Rebbe. Right, so people wouldn't speak in an ill way about these tzaddikim. Rebbe said he's going to mishamish him in the next world. Amlehem, Rebbe said to his sons. Again, his sons are by his deathbed, and Rebbe says to them, "L'chachmi Yisrael an Eitzarach." He says, "Now I need the Chachmi Yisrael." Nichnasu eitz l'chachmi Yisrael. The Chachmi Yisrael came to Rebbe. Amlehem, Rebbe said to them, "Altis beduni bayaros." Now there are kfarim, which are the boondocks. There are krochim, which are the large cities, and the Yaros seem to mean like the middle cities. And Rebbe said, it seems Rebbe was buried, he died in Tveria, and he was buried in I don't know where he was buried. Beit Sha'arim. He was buried in Beit Sha'arim. So they were going to pass, there was going to be a huge entourage. So Rebbe said, do not go ahead and have them in the middle cities. And therefore, and after 30 days, Rebbe was the Nasi, you can't learn Torah for 30 days, you should go ahead and establish the yeshiva again. And Shimon b'ni Chacham, Shimon, my son, is a Chacham, Gamliel b'ni Nasi, and Gamliel, my son, should be the Nasi. The Gemara is going to ask, why, since being a Chacham was not an appointment of any position, why mention it? In other words, the Rebbe is telling Mr. Sava. So long they say, "Oh, my son Shimon's a chacham, very Bokatov, right? So good, so good." I'm not telling that Gamliel is the Nasi is one thing, but because that's a position, he appointed in that position. But why say he's a chacham? The Gemara will discuss that. And Chanina Bar Chama and Yoshe Baroish, and who should be the Rosh Yeshiva is Chanina Bar Chama. So now the Gemara goes back and what is Rebbe's tzava? Al tis beduni by Yaris. It says, "Don't go ahead and be master me in the cities." People who heard this thought, Mishum Tircha Dekama. Rabbi is saying that he wanted people to go ahead, the Tircha of tremendous eulogies. Keeping the Chazi the Kesafti Bekrachim, since everyone saw that the Hespedim were taking place in the large cities, the Ka'asu Kuli Alma, everyone came from the Kfarim, from the Boondocks and the Ayaros and the middle cities. Shmamina Mishum Yikaru Dekama. Rabbi said it not for the bimatriach, the people, but for covered at Torah, to go ahead that there should be a maximum amount of people all in one spot. Hashiva yeshiva l'achar shleishim yoyim. Rabbi has said they should go ahead and have the yeshiva after 30 days, right? The lo yadif from Moshe Rabbeinu. Why after 30 days? Because he's not any better than Moshe Rabbeinu. The Chesiv, it says by Moshe, by Yivchu b'nei Yisrael es Moshe, ba'arbas moyav shleishim yoyim, and they cried for Moshe 30 days, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Yeshua, come get up, and we have say for Yeshua. Okay, so Rebbe felt that he's not any better than Moshe Rabbeinu. However, Tilsa Yomim Saftu B'Yavim V'Layla. For 30 days, they had paid them day and night. People weren't learning. Mikan ve'elech Saftu B'Yamama V'Garsa V'Layla. They would have a spade them during the day and learn at night. Or Saftu B'Layla, they'd have a spade them at night. V'Garsa B'Yamama, learn what during the day. And how long did this go on for? Ad the Safti Tracy Yachishasa, until past 12 months. It's amazing. Again, I don't know of any person in Shas that we hear exactly about his material as much as Rebbe. It's really amazing. It's amazing. Probably, I'm just suggesting this. Who wrote this? The Gemara. And Rebbe was the one who wrote the Mishnayos. So without Mishnayos, there's no Gemara. So it would make sense that Rebbe would get covered gadol. It would make just in Sfar it would make the most sense. Who Yuma the Ashkevet de Rebbe, the day that Rebbe died, Nafik Baskol Ba'amar, Baskol came out and said, Kol Dahavi Beshkabde the Rebbe, anyone who's there at the death of Rebbe, means anyone's there and by the old that has paid him and everything. Mizuman Hu L'chaim Olam is Mizuman for the next world. Okay. Hahu Koibis, there was this laundromat guy. Kol Yuma Havi Asi Kamei, he would come to Rebbe every day. Hahu Yuma Loyasi, he didn't come that day that Rebbe died. Him the Shama Hachi. Solik le'igra, he went up to the roof, and Nafal Ari fell down, and Yatsa Baskova Amra, he died. Yatsa Baskova Amra, Afu Kaivis Musum L'chayel. Now, but he even is prepared for the next world. Now, look at the top taisus. Mizumin L'chayel Haba, Tema. L'kol Yisrael Yeshem Chelik L'Elam Haba. Every person in Klal Yisrael has a Chelik L'Elam Haba, right? Every person. So what does it say over here that anyone who was by Rebbe's Petiro has mizumin l'olam haba. So listen to this. Pirish Rav Meya kol heichadam mizumin l'chaya olam haba hainu b'loy din u'b'loy yisurim. Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelik al haba eventually, but you don't know how you're going to get there. You don't have to go. You have to go through Gehenim first. You don't have to go through Yisurim first, right? You don't know. But when it says mizumin l'chayim olam in Yiddish, to biske great. The biscuit great, you're prepared for Olam Haba. In that case, what you go directly to Olam Haba without what any need for Yisurim or any need for what for Kapara. That's the Chiddush. Now the big Torah over here is how does this guy right to kill himself? You're not allowed to commit suicide. You're not allowed to commit suicide. So look at Otzkol. He has a slew of different pshatim. Whether he fell off the roof, or to do tshuva, you could kill yourself. These are chidushim nifloyim, or it's metaphorically. He's not speaking. He was again. Maybe it wasn't speaking about a person that he actually did kill himself. But there's a whole bunch of big Torah over here. Is how is a person allowed to kill himself? It's very, very difficult. Okay, says the Gemara Vayta. So he mentioned that Shimon b'ni Chacham. He said that Shimon is his son is a Chacham. So he asked right away, "My Kama, what? If you're not appointing him for a position, so why do we have to know that he's a Chacham?" Says Mahachi Kamar. Afa Pisha Shimon b'ni Chacham, Gamliel b'ni Nasi. Gamliel was the oldest son, and Gamliel b'ni is a Nasi. Now I always mention in this, Gamliel had a son, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya. When we say Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, it's not Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Gamliel was the son of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya was the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the son of Rabbi Gamliel, who was the Nasi. That was the order. So why mention that Shimon was a Chacham? That even though Shimon was a Chacham, Smashma, he was a bigger Chacham than Rabbi Gamliel. Nonetheless, Rabbi Gamliel's going to take the position. Levi said, what's Rabbi have to go ahead and appoint Gamliel, since he's the oldest son? Of course he should be. So Amrav Shimon Baribi said of Shimon, to Levi, it's needed to say ulimetal tach, and for your crippleness. He was a cripple. Levi had done kida. He showed kida and he dislocated part of his body. He was a cripple for the rest of his life. Gemara brings in an orphan. My kashle. Why was Rav Shimon? Why was he so tough with Levi? Why was Levi l'chayr said he's the oldest, and as the oldest, he had the right to the ascension to the Nesias. Says Hakra Kamar. He had a pasuk that go ahead and shows that the oldest son gets it. It says again, the Nasi was the direct descendant of the king. It says V'samalacha Nasan l'hayarim, and Yehoshaphat, he gave the king, he gave to his son Yehoram. Why? Because he kihu b'char. So we see the b'char, and Rabbi Gamliel was the b'char. So why was it necessary for Rebbe to give the Nesias to Rabbi Gamliel? And the Gemara, that case, Yehoram, he was able to be Mali Makam. He was great enough to be Mali Makam Yehoshaphat, and therefore he took his place. That's why, but not because necessarily he was the oldest. He was the oldest, and he was Roy Lekach. Over here, Rabbi Gamliel, Einam Mali Makam Aboisav. He was not. It seems that since Rav Shimon was the Chacham, it would be more appropriate for him to take his place. Rav Shimon rather than Gamliel. So that was the Chiddush. So the question is, if it was more appropriate of Shimon's, and it's not based upon hierarchy, so why in the world did he go ahead and put Rav Gamliel? Rabbi, my time of it to put Rav Gamliel in place. Says good. He was a Mali Makam in his father in Chachma. The year is Scheit Mali Makam regarding year Scheit, and that was a midah. He held the year Scheit was more important than Chachma, and therefore he put Rav Gamliel rather than Rav Shimon, who was Mali Makam b'Chachma more than Rav Gamliel. The Rabbi also had commanded that Chanina Bar Chama Yoshev B'Roish, that Chanina Bar Chama should go be the head of the yeshiva. Now, like Kibu Reb Chanina, Reb Chanina did not accept this position. Shahir Rabbi Office, godly Menu, Rabbi Office was older than Reb Chanina, Shtei Shana Metzah, 2.5 years. And therefore, Reb Chanina felt, despite the fact, as we're going to see, he was as great as Rabbi Office, or maybe greater. He felt since Reb Office was older, it would have been it would have been disrespectful, and therefore, even though he had been appointed, he appointed Reb Chanina, allowed Reb Office to be the head of the yeshiva. Yosef Rabbi Office Bereisha, therefore Rabbi Yosef Reb Office became the head of the yeshiva. Yosef Reb Chanina Abroi, and Chanina, he would sit outside. Again, he was greater than him in learning, or as great, and therefore it would have been proper for him to sit there. So he would sit outside. He would sit outside the base medrash. Excuse me. Levi came and he would go ahead. He would learn with Reb Chanina. Office of Office Nifta. And they made Reb Chanina. And I don't know, Levi didn't, for some reason, didn't feel that he should go inside, and he stayed outside and he didn't have anyone to learn with because of the bubble. Therefore, he came to Bavel. Behind the Amalei Rav, that's what they told Rav. Gava Rabba Iklal Nardoy, a great person came to Babel, to the town of Nardoy, and that great person was Levi, and he was mitla, he was crippled, he was limping, as we mentioned earlier. The Dorish Kalila Shari, he announced that Shiloh was discussing in Hilchas Shabbos about Isha Yotzas, what can an Isha go out with? And he said an Isha can go out with a Kalila, she can go out with a tiara, she can go out with a tiara in the head, and we're not concerned about her taking that off on Shabbos and showing it to her friends. Omar, Shmamino Noach Nafshe the Reb Office. Rav heard that Levi came. He must be that Reb Office was dead, right? Because as long as Reb Office was alive, he was learning Reb Chanina outside. Yos Reb Chanina Bereisha, and Reb Chanina became the head. So in other words, Rav knew exactly what happened. Rav knew Reb Office died. Reb Chanina went inside, and therefore Levi did not have anyone to learn with, and he left. Because he came to Nadai. Fred the Gemara, how did Rav know this? We can figure out another way. Easy enough. Guys, Reb Chanina died. How did Reb Office die? Reb Chanina died, and then Levi took off. Why did you assume that Reb Office died, Reb Chanina took his place, and Levi took off? You just could easily ascertain that Levi was the Chavusa of Reb Chanina. Reb Chanina died, and therefore Levi left. Why do you know that Reb Office died? Fred the Gemara, the Eimer of Office, Reb Chanina Noach Nafshe, and Reb Office Kid Yosef, he still remained in the place as the head of the yeshiva. Because he came, how did Rav know the other way that Rav Office died first? So Ibay Sema Levi Rav Office Mechav Havi Kaifle. if Reb Office was alive, Levi wouldn't have came to Bavel. He would have went inside the base medrash. If Reb Office was alive, he would have went inside the base medrash. That's one way. He knew that Reb Office died. The Baisema, even the Omer Reb Chanina Bar Chama Yasher Baroish, since Rebbe had said Reb Chanina is going to sit as the Rosh Hashiva, and as of yet it hadn't been fulfilled because Reb Chanina put Reb Office in, and the words of Rebbe have to be fulfilled. Al Kochach, it has to be Reb Office died, and Reb Chanina became Rosh Hashiva. Right? It had to be Reb Chanina became Rosh Hashiva. Says Gemara, like Sagid like Malch. It's not possible that he could be the Rosh Hashiva. Therefore, I know Reb Office must have been died, or Reb Chanina took his place. It says by Tzadikim the lashon v'sigzar oimer b'yakam lach. You'll say it and it'll happen. We say Tzadik Goyis of Hashem Ekayim. This Tzadik Rebbe was Goyis that Rebbe Chanina is going to be the Rosh Hashiva, and there's no way he's not going to be the Rosh Hashiva. So if Reb Office was the Rosh Hashiva, it must be that Reb Office predeceased Reb Chanina. Very good. So two ways he knew him. Know that Reb Chanina, Reb Office predeceased. One, because Reb Office, Reb Chanina died and Levi didn't have a Charusa, he would have gone into the base medrash Reb Office, and he didn't. And secondly, we need, if Reb Chanina had died, he never would have been Rosh Hashiva. So it must be that Reb Office died and Levi became Rosh Hashiva because Rebbe's words had to be fulfilled. Says the Gemara, V'hahavi Reb Chia. Now, why did they appoint Reb Chanina as the head? There was a greater person than Reb Chanina, and that person was the famous Reb Chia. Reb Chia was a Talmud Muvik of Rebbe. He was Rav's uncle. Rav calls him Chavivi throughout Shas. And Reb Chia, we're going to see the very famous Gemara what Reb Chia did, right? So the Gemara says, Noich Nafshi, Reb Chia died before Reb Chanina. Reb Chia was greater, but Chanina had died before. Read the Gemara, Reb Chia, Ani Reisi Kivrei Shel Rebbe. I saw the caver of Rebbe. And I cried. No, I saw Rebbe's coffin, and therefore so you see, if he saw Rebbe's coffin, it must be Rebbe died before Reb Chia. It says switch it around. It says in other words that Rebbe saw Reb Chia. Reb Chia Oisa Yoim Shemes Rebbe Batlu Kedusha. Reb Chia said that the day that Rebbe died, Kedusha was batal. So it was Rebbe who said this about Reb Chia. It was Rebbe who said this about Reb Chia. But Tanya. Rebbe, when Rebbe became sick, Nichnas Reb Chia etzlei umatzei shu boicha. Reb Chia came and he found Rebbe crying. Amalor Reb Chia said to Rebbe, v'neima'ata boicha, but Tanya meis mitoich haschoik simin yafaloi. If you die with laughter, it's good for you. Mitoich habechi simin ra'aloi. Crying, it's not good. Panav lamayla simin yafaloi. If your head's up, it's good. Panav lamata simin ra'aloi, it's not. Panav klapi if you're facing the people yafaloi, it's good. Klapi a koisel next to the wall, it's simin ra'aloi, not good. Pon of Yeroikim simin ra'aloi. If your face is jaundiced, it's not good. Pon of tzehuvim v'adumim, it's rosy red, simin yafaloi. Meis ba'erev Shabbos simin yafaloi. If you die erev Shabbos, it's good. The moitzi Shabbos simin ra'aloi, it's not good. Meis ba'erev Yom Kippurim simin ra'aloi. Meis b'Yom Kippur simin yafaloi. Meis micholi me'ayin simin yafaloi. It's a good simin if you die from stomach problems. So most tzaddikim seem to die from this disease. I think it's very painful. So therefore, what? It's mechaper. Amalei Rebbe said, "L'chayr, what do you see? Right? So why are you crying? So, and it's mashma that Rebbe is dying first. Amalei, I know a Torah mitzvahs kabach. I'm not crying about myself. I'm crying about what? I won't be able to learn anymore, and the mitzvah won't be able to keep. They say a famous ma'aseh with the Gra. The Gra on his deathbed was playing with his tzitzis, and he was saying, "Give a cook for a few kopek, for a few pennies." You kind of a mitzvah, it's like appreciation of a mitzvah. Anyway, the bottom line is, if Rebbe Chia is visiting Rebbe, it's mashma that Rebbe's on his deathbed and dying, that Rav Chia outlived Rebbe. And you have Rebbe appointing Reb Chanina, and you told me Reb Chia was dead. So it's mashma that Rebbe died after Reb Chia, not before Reb Chia. Says Gemara, Iboy Seima, Epach. You could say in Brisa, it was Reb Chia who was crying and Rebbe who was giving him musa. Iboy Seima, don't switch it around. Reb Chia oisik mitzvahs happy. Reb Chia, he was busy with mitzvahs. The reason why, in Achinami, Reb Chia was bigger than Chanina. But Reb Chia was so busy with mitzvahs, Rebbe did not want to burden him being the Rosh Hashiva. That would have taken him away from mitzvahs. So in other words, this teretz would go ahead and like Tepach, all the whole Gemaras that you just went ahead and switch names, don't switch the names. In fact, Rebbe Chia did not die. He died after Rebbe. And Rebbe Chanina and him were alive at the same time. and Reb Chia was bigger, and he should have been the Rosh Hashiva. But Rebbe made a conscious decision that what? I'm not going to make him Rosh Hashiva. Why? Because Reb Chia, Reb Chia was busy being Oisik b'mitzvahs. Right? He was very big. But Rebbe Sava and Rebbe held loy afkere. I don't want to go ahead and stop him from doing mitzvahs. Listen to this beautiful Gemara. When they would have Chanina Bar Chama and Reb Chia, when they would have arguments and learning, Amle Reb Chanina Rebbe Chia, Bahade Didi Mitzad, you argue with me? The Imchas V'Shalom L'Shtach Torah Yisrael, said Reb Chanina, if Torah was forgotten from Yisrael, I'd be able to restore it with all my Torah. We had a Gemara that Moshe Rabbeinu, before he died, asked Yeshua bin Nun, is there anything you want me to chazer with you? And he said, I never left your side. Why should you, said Moshe Rabbeinu felt chalishas hadas, and he forgot machloikas whether 3,000 halachas or 300 halachas, he forgot, and it was restored by a Sneal ben Kenaz in Kiryat Sefer. Kiryat Sefer is describing a Sneal was zoicha to bring it back. So you see that there are people who are capable of bringing back Torah. So Reb Chanina said, if the Torah was forgotten, Reb Chanina says, I through my pulpulim, I could have brought it all back. That's what he told him. Anyway, Amalei Reb Chia said to him, you're saying that what? I could bring back Torah if it was forgotten from Yisrael. Says Reb Chia, I'm preventative. I'll prevent it from being forgotten. You're going to go ahead and correct it if it's forgotten. I'm going to go ahead and help it before it's forgotten. Where do you see that? Very famous Gemara. The Isina Kisna B'Shadina. He goes, I take flax that I planted. Umigadlana Nishbe. I then go ahead and make nets out of the flax. V'tzayode Tavya. I capture deer. Umachilna Bisra Liasme. I feed the meat of the deer to the Yisayimim. V'arichna Megilasa Mimishre de Tavya. I make Megillas. I make parchment from the skin of deers. V'solikna Lamasa Delespe Mikri Darki. I go up to the city where there are no people to teach young children. The Kasivna Chamsha Chumshe Lechamsha Yinuke. I write 5 Torahs to 5 different kids. Umasnin and Shisa Sidre L'Shisa Yinuke. I teach 6 Sidarim to 6 kids, 1 to each one. L'chol Chad V'Chad Amilei. I tell each one, Asnei Sidrach V'Chadrach. Go ahead and you teach your Seder to the other one. So we see that Reb Chia was so fantastic in doing mitzvahs, right? That he wanted to ensure that Torah should not be forgotten. So the Gemara brought this in to show that this is why Rebbe did not want to burden the great Reb Chia with the being racial. So here he's busy going around making sure Torah is not forgotten. That's much more important than being the Rosh Hashiva. Behind the Rebbe, and this is what Rebbe said: how great what is the Maisa of Reb Chia? How great is the Maisa of Reb Chia? So Amalei Reb Shimon bar Rabbi said Reb Shimon Rebbe to Rebbe, I feel Imcha, is Reb Chia greater than you? So Amalehem, yeah, he's sure. Amalei Reb Shmuel bar Rabbi Yosi, I feel him Abba even greater than Rabbi Yosi, my father. Amalei Chas v'Shalom, Loi take his Leis B'Yisrael. Don't nothing. No one's greater than Rabbi Yosi. No one's greater than Rabbi Yosi. So we'll stop over here.